Yes. Hit him with the Muppet Show theme song to start. The how does it go? It's time to start the music. It's time to light the lights. It's time to meet the Muppets on the Muppet Show tonight. Dun, dun, dun. It's time to put on makeup. It's time to dress up right. It's time to meet the Muppets on the Muppet Show tonight. Shout out to anybody that knows the Muppet Show. It was a genuine banger. What's up, Gotron? I was I was thinking like, man, I wanted to come back to streaming because I've like streamlined a couple of things, and I was like, what am I gonna do for the bit, like the opening bit? I was like, what if I just sang the Muppet Show intro? Is it weird that I can tell that some YouTubers are Republican even if they say nothing political? No, I don't think it's that weird. In fact, I think I know what you're talking about even. There's sort of oops. Let's there's like an underlying reactionism that is very visible whenever they talk about certain subjects of interest. When anybody does that, really, but YouTubers especially, because the YouTube algorithm really incentivizes, like, it incentivizes people to find those channels. So whether it's them actually believing that stuff or like you know something else, then yeah, you can hear the reactionism in people's voice, kind of in the way they talk. I feel like if you talk to me, even if I don't talk about anything political, you could probably tell far left a little bit. You probably could. The ideologies of people are very psychosexually rooted, and what that means basically is that, like, your ideology is informed by other biases and the way that you see the world, and people who are irrational and very reactionary, very like, well, there are certain markers to whether somebody would be on the left or on the right, and in a very basic sense, if somebody is a moron and unreasonable and sounds like a conspiracy theorist, then they're way more likely to be on the right. But if somebody sounds reasonable and has like, you can tell they are genuinely interested in stuff and they have a well-developed sense of critical thought, they're on the left. Like, it is genuinely that kind of divide that you can tell. Also, conservatives lack basic human empathy. There have been studies to this effect. So if somebody has a healthy amount of empathy, then they would probably be on the left relative to somebody else. Rest in peace, Ukraine. Yeah, we got a lot of news. There's a lot of news on this on my list of stuff, but I have managed to avoid having a metric fuckload of tabs open by copy pasting links. Ah, look at this. There's some new updates to Retro Rewind and stuff. So now I can just copy paste the links from oh wow. Let's try some of these custom tracks. Custom verses. Okay. So it feels weird. Companies are like, are you a bottom when you want to get a job? Yeah, the reason for that is they don't want you to start a union. Companies are looking for the most submissive and breedable employees that they can find so that they can exploit them, and they, don't run as much of a risk of them deciding to organize and unionize and stuff like that. That's literally it. If you hire a bottom, they're less likely to complain if they, in a meaningful sense, if they are being underpaid or if they're working hours that are too long, and or are otherwise being mistreated. Like if they do the whole quiet hiring, quiet quitting shtick, that's why they go looking for people like that. They just want to, like, it's like I mentioned in that other video segment. Companies just want to have slave labor. It labeled flexibility as a motive. Yeah, and flexibility means, like, our flexibility to not pay you money. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you should be flexible, which means that we're going to ask you to work hours that you're not scheduled to work. And we will, like, set that up as an expectation, and if you don't do things that are outside of the scope of your job description, we might, like, fire you. Also, it is warm in my room. I'm taking off my sweatshirt. I love this sweatshirt. You probably see me wearing it in just about every single stream, but there's only so much that I can do with it. Alright, what do we got? Oh boy. I have not seen some of these. There we go. Now let's get started on some of these news stories that I was looking at. Let's go in order of most recent to least recent. I'll start with this. There we go. This one actually might necessitate... Feels like reality is edging us with the end of America. Yeah, in a way it does, you know? The economic suffering just keeps getting drawn on. I did see a bit about how Donald Trump and JD Vance plan to effectively, like, devalue the US dollar and stuff like that. Like, their plan is to bring about inflation so that they can devalue labor in America, which facilitates a massive upward concentration of wealth. I'm not super well educated on the fine-tuned details of how you would go about doing that, because that gets into, like, literally the kind of theory and policy that people deal with at the Fed, at, like, the Federal Reserve, so, like, monetary policy and financial theory on like, Keynesian economics, which is way above the scope of, like, what I am, what I know about, you know? It's like, you know, the absolute seizure that John Maynard Keynes is going to have is literally, like, beyond the level of my understanding. But what I do know is that they plan to introduce a lot of inflation, devalue the US dollar, and effectively do a kind of 1984-esque devaluation of labor that makes life worse for everyone, including the billionaire class. Like, devaluing the US dollar and crashing America's economy and bringing the whole world with it doesn't benefit anybody per se, but it is to the relative benefit of the oligarch class, because, like, the gap between them and the rest of society grows larger. Even though everybody in an absolute sense is worse off materially, the billionaires not only stay on top, but are more comfortably on top relative to everybody else than before, if that makes sense, you know? And like I said, this is part of 1984, where the party is like, yeah, we're intentionally making life worse for everybody because it gets less worse for us, and that means our control is assured, and stuff like that. But anyways, for this first news segment, I actually might need to stop playing at various points to take a look at it, because what I wanted to talk about, I know my chat fucking loves elections, and so do I think. You know, it's fun having the numbers, the data, the statistics even. And Germany just recently had, in fact, just yesterday, they had a federal election for the German parliament, and I think also for state governments and stuff. Republicans will probably defeat every superhero because they're liberals. I don't understand what you mean by that, but, like, I don't know. Maybe. Oh, this is I think this is the oh, this track is cool looking. But the German election is something I wanted to talk about, because we love our elections, even though I am not necessarily an electoralist. I believe that you have to do a lot of work outside of the electoral cycle and in Will Germany go Nazi again? Actually, yes and no. That's the most interesting thing about this election. So I'm looking at the whoa. Okay, this track is kind of goofy. Looking at the charts here, for the election results, the CDU, the right-wing party, the like mainstream, well, I guess most of these parties are all mainstream because they won seats in the governing body, but the like neoconservative party won about they won 28% of the vote, and the AFD, the Nazi party, won about 21% of the vote, right? And then the other notable results were that the SPD plummeted to 16%. Poor bastards. They just don't have the sauce in them, you know. German Social Democrats, not known for being not known for being politically effective. I'll say that much. And then the Greens got about 11.5%. The Left Party is the only other party that is going to be represented in government. There are a total of, I think, let's see, let me count this off. It's kind of hard to do this while I'm driving. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 parties that are being represented in government, and one of them is Die Linke, the Left Party. Now, the last time I talked about Die Linke, I was under the impression that it was kind of a joke political party, but I am actually very happy to have recently been proven quite wrong about that. How many of these parties matter? All of them. All of these parties matter. And I will explain why in a moment. No, Die Linke put up a pretty good showing. They got about 8.8% of the vote. Looks like on that chart. And that is about a tripling of their earlier vote share. The last time the election happened, they only got like 3%. They didn't have any seats in government. You have to have at least 5% of the vote to get seats in the German government. Which brings me to the 2 funniest results. The FDP, the Libertarian Party in Germany, got 4.3% of the vote, and the BSW, the like Nosbol splinter off from the Left Party, got 4.97% of the vote. Just too little for them to have any seats in the parliament. El Bozo, dance on their grave, pack watch, smoke a cigar, you know how it is. So you have 5 parties represented in government. The SPD, the CDU, the Greens, AFD, and the Left. Those are the absolute results. Alone and Incomplete. I don't know what that track is, but I'm picking it. So, on another chart here, we see that there are some parties that made gains and some parties that took a big hit. Left Party gained... Oh, okay, might be. It was not a tripling of their previous showing. It's about a doubling. They gained about 3.9% percentage points of the vote. AFD gained about 10.4. CDU gained about 4.4. And BSW was a new party, so their gain was their total vote share and stuff. The FDP, the Greens, and the SPD lost really big time. I don't know what this track is, but further proof that fascism or communism is true. Yes, this election is proof that like the ideological divide is just, all right, which way, Western man, socialism or barbarism? You know, like pick your fighter. You know, you got on the left, you've got socialism, on the right, you've got barbarism, and it seems that people in Germany are choosing both of those things. The demographic turnout for these parties indicate that a lot of young men voted for the AFD, while older people tended to vote more for the SPD and particularly the CDU. They're like very much legacy parties at this point. But young people overall, and young women especially, voted in pretty decent numbers for the Left Party. That was I don't live in Germany. I don't know which parties are which. SPD is the Social Democrats, liberals. The Greens are the Greens, liberals. The FDP are libertarians, but they're irrelevant because they didn't get any seats. The BSW are Nazbols. The AFD are Nazis. The CDU are neocons that will capitulate to Nazis every chance that they get. And Die Linke is the only real party. the only real political option for Germany. You could even say it is the only real alternative for Germany is Die Linke. CTs? Yeah, they added them in Retro Rewind, apparently. Don't liberals also submit to fascists? Yes, but the SPD and Greens probably less so, because there's still, like, a touch of the parties that they used to be in there somewhere. And they also have, from insofar as they have a political platform to speak of, it is pretty substantially different from the AFD. The liberal parties are very lacking in terms of a bold, affirmative political vision. But the substantial difference between the Greens and the SPD and the CDU is that the Greens and the SPD are like, don't be racist, that's bad. And then all the economic stuff is, you know, they're liberals and support tweaks around the margins. CDU does support the tweaks around the margins, but they're also kind of racist. They are a watered-down version of the AFD, and the SPD and the Greens less so. And in fact, this would not be the first time that the CDU and the AFD have worked together. They worked together, I think, a year or two ago on an immigration bill in Germany. I don't remember if it passed or not, but on the #1 issue of the AFD, immigration, and really not liking brown people, the CDU was like, yeah, you know, we agree. We're willing to work on a reasonable proposal to restrict immigration because, you know, they're a drag on the welfare state. Or something like that, you know? They're fundamentally the same logic is being employed there. And that is why the CDU and AFD warrant the side-eye here. You know, I anticipate whatever coalition is built in name, it's possible the CDU goes with the SPD, or with the SPD and the Greens, or with the AFD. Expect the CDU to work with the AFD, particularly on immigration and stuff. And possibly on economics as well, because remember, the only difference between the AFD and these other liberal parties is that they are more racist. The AFD are also austerity liberals. They're not willing to do the kind of bold economic change that Die Linke is willing to do, that Die Linke has promised, that, you know, Die Linke wants to, like, invest a bunch in East Germany, if I remember right, and they want to support the unions and the workers' movements and stuff like that, and no other party really wants to do that. Even the SPD hasn't been very vocal, because they're liberals who don't really have an affirmative vision. Conflict makes politics interesting. Politics is conflict, you know? Because people, there are different groups of people who have different interests, and politics is how those interests are realized and how they exert influence to try to, well, realize those interests. Ooh, okay. In just a minute here, I'll get back to this article that I have open. Past me, very smart individual for putting all the links in the text document so I don't have to have a million tabs open. Nice. I blued myself. How long do you think liberals will last as they're kicking and screaming out the door? The liberals are not long for this world, politically speaking. They're pretty politically irrelevant already. And part of what makes the liberals not politically relevant is that they're not willing to go kicking and screaming out the door. They go quietly into the night. So as it stands right now, let's see, the left has 64 seats. Yeah, CDU has 208, the Greens have 85, SPD 120, AFD 152. Yeah. Captain America movie was like, guys, why can't you get along? I have no interest in the Captain America movie. I'll be frank. Ever since I heard that they were like using AI in the advertisements for it or whatever. Anywho, we have some voter migration here. Gains or losses of votes to other parties or non-voters. SPD. SPD fucking bled voters. They lost 2 million voters to the CDU and 720,000 to AFD. Some to the left, some to BSW. Like, SPD just lost big time. And every party, except for the AFD, actually lost votes to the left as well. The only party that gained votes from the left party is the AFD. They gained about 100,000 votes from Die Linke. But anyways, I wanted to talk a little bit about what was it, like the whether or not Germany is going to go Hitler mode to address one of the earlier questions, and the answer is kind of like yes and no. As it stands, there's likely to be a governing coalition that either officially or unofficially includes the AFD in a pretty influential position. So in that way, yes. However, if you consider the amount of ground that the left party made up in so little time, I think they had a big like polling surge just a month ahead of the election, and some like substantially in like a week prior to the election because of the speech from J.D. Vance about how like, yeah, Europe, you're on your own. And they campaigned really aggressively. They're really active on social media. They're capturing a lot of the attention of younger political demographics. The left has something that I think the other parties don't really, not even the AFD, and that's momentum, political momentum, which is like super important because they have something that the liberal parties definitely don't, and that is a real platform, a platform that they can be passionate about and that they can be like a vocal advocate for, you know. And that's going to win over a lot of people, young and old, to their political base. It already has. But this time, that only amounted to about 8 point something. It was like almost 9% of the vote. It didn't amount to much this time, necessarily, except for, you know, a doubling of their previous electoral showing. Quick enough? I don't understand what you mean by quick enough, Gotron. Yeah, I'm looking at the demographics here. 18 to 24s. The plurality of people in the 18 to 24-year-old age demographic actually voted for the left by a massive margin. It was not even close. The next demographic down to vote for the left was 25 to 34 at 15%. And the next largest share of young voters was 21% to the AFD. The young people preferred the more left-leaning options for the most part. People try to create a left party that's not liberal before they get enough time. It destroys everything. What? No. Understand, Germany is not like a third-party bullshit system the way that the United States has. It's a it's not like first past the post system. And Die Linke was not new. Die Linke has been around for a while. They've just been like usually a bit player. For fascists. Oh, okay. People try to create a left party that's not liberal before they get enough time. Fascism destroys everything. Well, here's the thing. In order for the left to be successful, people need to kind of see the ways in which fascism is going to, well, intends to destroy everything, right? Because the way that liberal democracies decline is that naturally far-right populism is going to appear first because it has the backing of the uber-wealthy class. The left populism is going to be entirely organic, whereas the right-wing populism is mostly astroturfed by, you know, industrialists and capitalists and you know, investors, finance bros, etc., right? So the part where the left is, it like comes around to save the day basically, and where things start to get better is going to happen after the part where things probably get worse. And that's what I meant to point out with the coalition building between, you know, what I think is going to happen with the AFD and CDU, either coalition building in a formal capacity or working together outside of a coalition in a like informal capacity. You know, that is going to hollow out Germany. Germany depends a lot on immigrants, as do most first world countries. In fact, I think every first world country, by virtue of being a first world country, depends on immigrants for labor and for population growth because, well, in developed countries that are sort of stagnating liberal democracies, the birth rate tends to not be very high. And, you know, having enough people coming into your country for a stable or growing population is super important, and you really don't want to face population decline because that doesn't spell anything good for your economy. And that is exactly what fascism would do to the demographics of any one of these countries, to say nothing of the financial havoc that it would wreak internally, independent of that, or the kind of mass suffering that minorities would experience once they are in the country. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you. I'm glad I'm making sense of this. So fascism is, you know, going to worsen things in Germany, and that's going to provide an opportunity for a newly mobilized left to get the attention of disaffected people, young and old, but mostly young because, you know, young people tend to be the hotbed of political change, always. And it's basically going to be like a variation of this in most countries. I think Germany just seems to be setting up for it a little bit right now. How soon it happens, I think, ultimately determines how bad things get in various other countries where the far right is experiencing a resurgence. So, mostly due to the fact that old people don't want change like the plague. Yep, and that's why most old people voted for CDU and SPD, is because those are the parties of the status quo, and that's stable. A stable decline for a good amount of old people is preferable to any sort of change. Here, if I look at the election results by age again. Yeah, we can see that, here, let me scroll back to that graph. Election results by age, thank you. Yeah, 25% of people over the age of 70 voted for the SPD, and 42% of them voted for the CDU. That's a combined 67%. A full 2/3 of old people voted for the most status quo political parties out of the bunch. And only 4% of the old people voted for Die Linke. About 10% voted for AFD because, you know, some of the old people do be Nazis. Oh, that was a good shock. In fact, another notable thing is that the AFD simply performed about how they were expected to, as opposed to overperforming. we all remember, I'm sure, that Elon Musk, after he did that Nazi salute in at that Trump rally, went over to or not went over to did a Zoom call to this AfD rally in Germany, and basically tried to use his poll both on Twitter and in real life to say, like, hey, AfD is the only alternative for Germany. Everybody should vote AfD because they will save the country. And that still didn't give AfD any more juice to like get above that 20% line that they were already predicted to be at, you know? So the AfD, I think it will kind of run out of steam as a result of their, well, anything that they do being like downright disastrous. And it seems like, short of any like massive institutional resistance, it seems like the left can only go up from here, which is good because the left is the only party with a real economic revitalization project for Germany through. Gotta concentrate for a second. Through like supporting workers' unions and sort of rolling back the excesses of neoliberalism and like, well, not letting corporations fucking plunder Germany to the extent that they have. A lot of the political climate in Germany is kind of determined by the fact that East Germany was like basically shock therapied by West Germany and the Western powers after the end of the Cold War. You know, like how all the oligarchs in Russia, with the help of American financiers and economists, like bought up all the industry and privatized it. A similar thing happened in East Germany, where a lot of money was sunk into the region, but it was all sunk into the region in a way that was mostly like buying up industries and businesses, and left the major economic hubs in West Germany, and things got better, but not by that much in East Germany. You know? It was kind of like just a slightly nicer occupation. And so the left is developing an answer to that. I might do one more race, and then I actually want to look at one of the campaign things for... Let's be honest, the left is the only party with a plan, actual plan. Yes, and that is exactly why I think they're going to eventually come out on top in politics. Eventually, like, left parties are going to steal the spotlight, because you think about the dynamic here that I was explaining earlier. SPD and CDU, the liberals and the, like, neocons, basically, the best they can offer is to, with varying degrees of racism, economic tweaks around the margins, everything is fine as it is, despite the fact that everything is visibly not fine as it is. AfD is willing to scream and yell that things are not fine as they are, but their answer is just to be racist and make things worse, which would not make things better. The left is the only party with that will say, yeah, things are not fine, and also we have a real plan that we're going to be very vocal about to fix it, that will benefit everybody, and that doesn't involve being fucking racist, you know? In fact, it involves mostly hating billionaires and wanting to tax all of their wealth out of them and redistribute it and support unions and such and such. I remember like a revamping of the tax brackets to be much more taxing on billionaires being a part of the left's plan, which is a very easy policy W to cultivate. Yeah, the left parties like Thanos, we are inevitable. So that was that was what I wanted to talk about mostly with the German election, is that even though things like, yes, the far right is taking over, and yes, things are probably going to get worse for a decent amount of time in Germany, like they are in most countries where the far right has a presence, it's not going to last forever because, you know, the far right doesn't actually have a plan. Like, remember, during... anybody who knows the history of Germany knows that The Nazis were fucking incompetent, economically speaking. They had no idea what they were doing. The only reason that they were able to stay in power as long as they did without collapsing Germany's entire economy is that, number one, they were the sort of, they were coasting off of the bounce back, the economic recovery from the Great Depression, which every country was experiencing a version of at the time. And then, secondly, they had war plunder to fuel the economy. And they needed that war plunder, believe it or not. The Nazis in Germany were so incompetent that they actually had to resort to using war plunder to fuel the economy and the war effort. You know, because of their mismanagement of things domestically. Germany today and other countries today are not subject to those circumstances. Like, we're not rebounding back from the biggest economic depression in human history. And there's not an ongoing war for Germany that would allow them to use economic plunder to fuel their economy, nor would I think war plunder really be enough to fuel a modern, industrialized, globalized economy. It's an actual joke that the Nazis ever thought they had a chance of conquering the planet. Yeah, whatever war plan and strategy, you could devise a fantastical scenario where, oh, the Nazis win World War II and all that. And, you know, like, oh no, it's the man in the high castle. All of their governments would fucking collapse instantly because they are so motivated by irrational hatred that they are literally incapable of governing rationally. They are incapable of maintaining a dictatorship that is stable enough to not collapse under its own weight and mismanagement. Like, that shit would happen instantly if Nazis were in charge. Like, the moment World War II ended, Germany was due for another economic collapse if the United States didn't come in and, you know, Marshall Plan everybody. Fascism is basically Homelander. Yeah, but without the invincibility. Fascism is all of the, like, incompetence and mental deficiency and psychosexual insecurity of Homelander without any of the superpowers or invincibility. They're just pathetic fucking wretches of human beings. And the way that they govern reflects that. This track is cool. I mean, literally cool. It is winter themed. I'm noticing this. Big fan. No, I meant to get a box there, but I didn't. This track is beautiful. Oh my god. I like this track. Very cool. Anyway, Future Me, if that's a segment, cut it there, I guess. I'll link, you know, if this does become a segment, I'll definitely link the website that I was looking at in the description of the video, because I think the graphs there are pretty interesting. I know I'm a fucking nerd, and it is, like, definitely nerd shit that I'm talking about, like, oh, this graph of the election results is really interesting, but I think it supports some of the points that I make, that the left has momentum, and if you know what was expected of the far right, they're kind of approaching their peak. And definitely, like, people are pretty fed up of the institutional parties, you know? Like the SPD and the CDU are only really big because they're coasting off of political inertia. But yeah, in either case, cut the segment there, Future Me, and you know, if Delinka keep doing your shit, keep getting on that grind, and, you know, see you next time, I guess. I don't know. There is hope for Germany, is what I'm saying. Nice. Is it weird that it feels like every country has reached the same conclusion near the same? In a way, yes, but in a way, it also makes sense. One of the biggest features of modern capitalism is globalization. I mean, in a way, you could say that's just a feature of modern economy and modern technology. you know, if we had an economic system that wasn't capitalism, I'm sure things would still have globalized because of, you know, telecommunications technology rapidly advancing. But because we have a globalized economy, because the globalists won, you know, all the international capital fuckheads, every country is now interconnected, and the decline of the system is no longer a sort of isolated thing. It's not something that you can contain to a single nation state or even a group of nation states. The stagnation of liberalism and the reaction of capital are truly global things. You can look at fascist movements in multiple countries and they sound exactly the same. Exactly the same. The disingenuous free speech talking points, we deserve to have a right to spread misinformation, and like the whole wokeness is evil, and DEI wokeness such and such. These are talking points shared across borders because capital is international. And when that is international, the decline that it brings about will also be international. And so it might not be, you know, exactly the same time, but yeah, it's gonna happen at a pretty similar clip for a lot of these countries. Rochendra, welcome to chat. Yes, this is actually Retro Rewind. They added there was a new update which added a custom track option in the pack, and I'm playing that right now to see what kind of custom tracks are on offer. And I died. And I'm talking about politics because I do that kind of stuff. I do news coverage. In fact, I wanted to also talk about one of the reasons I like experienced a big burst of motivation to come back to streaming regularly, and particularly to do more news segments. Even though I said in the past that like fucking things are happening so fast that it is genuinely difficult to keep up. Ow. There was something that I think will make particularly the Americans blood boil, and for Europeans prepare for your jaw to drop, I suppose. But for right now, I'm enjoying a nice race on Terra Ursae. Can I join? Yeah, sure. I don't know if there are any spots open, but I think if you type the FC, like exclamation point FC or something in the chat, I believe I have a command for friend code or something. Hear the Canada winning sports over America made Trump mad. Yes, I did hear that. It was glorious. The hockey game between the United States and Canada happened a little while ago, and not only did Canada win, because I mean hockey is Canada's sport, the way that like football and basketball and baseball are America's sports, you know. But what was even funnier was that apparently before the game happened, like ahead of time, Trump actually called the coach. He called the coach of the American hockey team on the phone, and like gave a pep talk to the American hockey teams. Like, you guys are, you're great representatives of our country. We love our sportsmen, and you'll do our country proud, I'm sure. Go out there and just have a good time. You know, he was literally posting that the real hockey game was the friends we made along the way, which is incredibly funny. And then they went out there and got whooped by Canada, and all the Canadians were like taking a victory lap about it, and making fun of America for being so dumb, and etc. etc. And honestly, I think America earned that. So I did see that, yes. Okay. Now the source of the motivation in question. That made me realize, oh shit, maybe I should do more news coverage. From Cheryl Weichel, the leftist lawyer. person that I see their posts on occasion on Blue Sky. True story. A few years ago, I was being interviewed by a reporter for the New York Times. You can take this with a grain of salt if you want, but there's more to it, as I will explain. It's not just the one post. Ooh, this is a cool track. Interviewed by a New York Times reporter. I mentioned the history of eviction statutes and how they tied to Jim Crow. Jim Crow being the system of racial segregation and apartheid that existed in the United States, and to a degree actually still exists. The reporter asked, "What's Jim Crow?" When I explained, the reporter didn't believe me and said the U.S. wouldn't do that. This is an American journalist that was like, "Nah, America wouldn't do that. Jim Crow, what is this?" You fucking learn about Jim Crow in your high school, like, civics class. If you take a civics class. Like, it is some extremely basic shit. Getting the urge to slap? Yes, as well you should. But this post was actually not just a one-off. It was a response to another post, which I did take the time to corroborate the information from this other post to the extent that I could. This other user, who just, their tag is just M, says, "A good example of how the world is getting dumber. The new Politico playbook writer didn't know who FDR was until a reader told him about that whole New Deal thing. This newsletter is read by every important person in DC, and they provided a screenshot with this guy writing some of the most embarrassing few paragraphs I've ever seen about, like, wow, that's so crazy. I didn't know about this FDR guy until I fucking looked him up on Wikipedia. This guy is like, purportedly a journalist or the head of a journalistic outlet. Well, I guess he would be a journalist because he is a writer for a news organization about political events, who did not know who FDR was and hadn't done so much as a Wikipedia search on the subject. And they provided a name. The guy's name is Jack Blanchard, and I looked it up. That is really the guy. He is really writing this playbook. And, of course, I looked into him a little bit more, and it turns out he is a very well-connected, member of, like, the upper crust of British society. So, British Nepo baby being hired to write news journalism for America. Like, literally, the playbook they're referring to, it's called The Unofficial Guide to Washington, D.C. And this guy didn't know who FDR was, and he only learned about it because he had said in one of his pieces, "Oh, Donald Trump was the most impactful president in American history." And somebody was like, "Hey, fuckhead, what about FDR?" They didn't say, "Hey, fuckhead." I added that part. And it made me mad. It made me really mad seeing these two posts. I like, feel like you should just get fired for that. You should. Honestly, like, that's journalistic malpractice. You're gonna say somebody is the fucking most influential president in American history, and you literally don't know who Franklin Delano Roosevelt is, what he did, what he is known for? Yeah, that should get you fired. But he's a British Nepo baby and is rich, so he'll probably never get fired. And that was the moment that I realized, shit, maybe I should do news coverage, because the shit that you see on this live stream is probably better journalism than most American news outlets. You have open host enabled. I don't know, but I'm not hosting this. Oops. I don't know if that's open host pertains to that. Better than my school education otherwise. Yeah, the bar is really low, and but I want to make sure that I'm clearing it regardless. What is over here? Great. Follow the Leader. Truly one of the custom tracks of all time. Nice meme. Cannon? Cannon. Okay. And of course, I know I'm not like, I'm not a journalist by credentials. I don't have formal education in journalism, but I have done research, and I know that, like, generally what you should do and what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to fact check your sources, you're supposed to corroborate information, and you're supposed to cultivate at least a good set of facts for the information you're trying to convey, for the point that you're trying to make. And additionally, one of the, principles of journalism that has been largely left by the wayside in favor of access journalism is speaking truth to power and being critical of, inequality in power structures and stuff like that. And a lot of that is just gone in modern journalism, It really does feel like the modern journalistic climate traffics in access journalism, doing softball interviews with politicians and business people, particularly who are sympathetic to the far right, and like, basically enabling the spread of disinformation because of the political inclinations of their investors and stuff. So I'm doing my best, and I don't have any investors. There's no fucking secret set of interests or whatever that I cater to. I'm just a fucking guy. I'm doing this for free, motherfucker. I wish I wasn't, but I am. Most recent Marvel movie, a black person getting arrested. Captain America, just the cops. What? I feel like autocorrect might have murdered that sentence. Trust the cops, he said? Oh. Yeah, okay. Dog shit ass movie. Do not trust the cops. Irrespective of your race, do not trust the cops. Literally the worst thing that you could tell somebody. Also the most tone deaf, given that the criticism of the cops is like at an all-time high. Dissatisfaction with policing is at an all-time high, as is the incompetence of most police departments, insofar as we have records of their incompetence, Yeah, no. Look, if ever there was... all I'm saying is, if ever there was evidence that society is capable of functioning without the cops... then, you can look at society right now. In as dysfunctional a state as it is, granted, the cops are doing fuck all, apart from, like, I don't know, shooting people's dogs and arriving 7 hours late to the scene of the crime to then do nothing. And then, pull over random black people on the street, brutalize them, etc. They're not terribly useful. Except for breaking strikes. They do that. Remember the one city that had cop strike and crime went down? That one city you're thinking of is New York City. The cops went on strike in 2021, and crime decreased in New York City for the duration that they were on strike. And look, if you want to be pedantic, you could point out all of these statistical factors and confounding variables and whatever that could have led to a illusion of that being like a correlation, but the point of it is, at the best of times, like, being as charitable as possible to the cops, they have zero statistical, like, impact on crime. Like, that's the most charitable thing you could say about the cops, given that data point, as well as other data points that have been collected throughout the years over the effectiveness of police and police tactics. Like, to anybody who's wondering, then, like, I know that there's this narrative that often gets woven about how, like, oh, the police are there to stop crime. They're not. The police are there to protect the interests of like the wealthy people, which is why, like, they always like are on the side of the strike breakers rather than the striking workers and whatever, and stuff like that. And they do detract from a real solution to crime. A lot of people are genuinely concerned about crime, about cities being unsafe, and places are pretty unsafe in the United States relative to places like Europe. Mostly because there are cars everywhere, and we have like tens of thousands of automobile deaths every year, or something like that, or maybe not tens of thousands, thousands. It's a lot. But the way that you address like the insecurity, the physical insecurity of cities, is not to just have a bunch of cops everywhere, but rather it's to like address income inequality. Crime only really happens when there are antisocial factors at play that would make somebody engage in crime. Crime is a legally codified set of antisocial behaviors, and like the only way that people generally do that is if they're antisocial enough to do that, and that's influenced by like environmental stuff. You know, if you're poor, you're not necessarily inclined to turn to crime. There are plenty of countries that are poor, or plenty of areas that are poor and might not have that much crime, but crime really skyrockets in an environment where there is not just poverty, but inequality. When there is great poverty in relative proximity to great wealth. You know, there have been times in the history of the world where like circumstances have been dire, but because things are generally pretty egalitarian, there's not that much crime and like antisocial sort of misbehavior. But in eras like the Great Depression, in eras in modern history like you know, the 2008 recession, in poor neighborhoods of otherwise very large cities where there is great wealth nearby, but there's a stratum of people that just aren't getting it, that's where you see crime. Because there's a social mismatch there. There's social antagonisms, as it's called. People drive cars, act like the rich. Yeah, there's a... I don't know if I just came up with this. I'm almost positive I heard it from somewhere else. Cars make monsters of men. When people drive their cars, they fucking act inhuman, and it's genuinely insane. You know, not a fan. Not a fan. But yeah, sorry, that was just another iteration of my little spiel about how cops are basically useless and don't stop crime because that's not their job. And in fact, it's even in the law that it's not their job. The Supreme Court ruled that the cops do not have an obligation to protect anybody from harm. I think this wasn't even all that recent. It was several years ago. It was 2019, I believe, this ruling. You know, cops, it's not even part of the job description that you stop crime. You're there to, like, maintain order, whatever that means. You know? Even though order seems to have a perfectly okay time maintaining itself. But yeah, poverty and inequality are the real predictors of crime. And in the modern world, poverty and inequality kind of go hand in hand because there's so much wealth and there are so many ways to distribute resources to people. Like the poverty is not a general, like, widespread and equally distributed sense of malaise. It's like it's directed and like some people are immune to poverty through the flaws of the systems and whatever. You know, so if you address, the more you address income inequality, the more crime decreases. And that decrease actually stays in effect. There have been instances where, like, the immediate deployment of police to do, like, broken windows stuff has sort of made people scared enough that they don't go outside and otherwise don't commit crimes for a short period. But all that does is actually worsen the social antagonisms that cause crime in the first place. So in the long term, from what I remember of the data that I've read on the subject, crime actually goes up when more police are deployed to a given area because the added pressure from like forceful state agents will actually make somewhere poorer. Especially, you know, you think about just the name of broken windows policing. You know, when police are deployed more and more to areas with, you know, broken windows, i.e. poor neighborhoods, that, like, more and more just suppresses those neighborhoods further into poverty, right? Oh. Silly me, it hit the wall. Also, I think I'm driving pretty well for talking about, like, criminology. Again, a subject that I do not have a degree in, but that kind of became necessary for me to learn about and read about when I got really interested in politics. Because I'm kind of dumb. So I read about it to be less dumb. That doesn't mean you need to do the same. People that do training for police literally cite Hitler as one of their sources. Yeah, Hitler and the IDF, American police in large part, are trained by ex-IDF servicemen because the United States and Israel have some sort of treaty or legal agreements or whatever that we train their soldiers and they train our cops. So, let's be honest, you're probably smarter than the average Republican for even trying. Well, I know that, and thank you. But yeah. It's not like my job is very hard. And by my job, I mean this. You know? I mean, my part-time job isn't that hard either, but it is more difficult than this. I'll say that much. This is the easiest part of the either job that I do. The hard shit gets done off screen, like off stream. All the editing, that's the hard part. But that does actually remind me of a non-news thing that I wanted to talk about. Everybody in the Twitch world will know what I'm talking about. There's a universal bit between all live streamers where they joke about how hard their job is. That live streaming is the hardest job on the planet. Now I'm taking one for the team by being a live streamer and shit like that. It's a funny bit, I think. But what makes it funnier is because where it comes from. At least to my recollection, where it comes from, right? Sounds like any person who's done any work ever. What? Oh yeah, the live stream bit. Yeah, that's why it's so funny because like 99% of live streamers that I've ever seen do this have done it like tongue in cheek. There is one live streamer that I, like, ironically, I have to thank from the bottom of my heart for being, I think, the one person who has done this bit not tongue-in-cheek, and that's Leffen. This is not the first time I've talked about Leffen. I don't know if it'll be the last. He's funny in a very unintentional sort of way. But he, back in the day, I think, over... like coronavirus, it was like 2020 I think, or somewhere around there. It was when Leffen was a really big live streamer for Smash Bros. I don't know how big he still is. He still might be pretty big. And he said that, like, without any sense of irony or self-awareness, which is part of what makes it so funny, he said that live streaming is more difficult than a minimum wage job. And the entire internet descended upon him for that take, and he got so dogged on by live streamers and, you know, wage workers alike. Even people working salary jobs that were, like, in relatively cushy position relative to, like, low wage earners, dogged on him for that take. And it became, like, the meme of live streaming. Like, man... my job's so hard. You minimum wage Andes have no idea how hard I'm working over here being Mr. Live Streamer, Mr. Charismatic Personality all the time. You know? Because that, let me be real, that shit is easy. But you know, Leffen did gift us one of the funniest memes of the Twitch era of the internet. So thank you. And I guess actually never change. Because if he keeps being, like... if he has another one of those, it'll be lightning in a bottle again. People who work for minimum wage don't get paid much, being... mental damage? What? Wario. Oh no. Talk shit and got hit. I just thought that was really funny because I watched some other live streamers in addition to myself, and sometimes they'll make that joke. Every time I hear that joke, that bit, I am actually reminded of Leffen specifically and the Leffen tweet about how hard live streaming is, and that, you know, minimum wage earners like don't get it or whatever. And it makes me chuckle every time. People who work for minimum wage aren't mentally healthy because they're getting mentally damaged. Oh, yeah. Working a minimum wage job is like fucking... There's a reason that people on the left compare minimum wage labor to slavery. Like, and it's a good reason. Because there are some disturbing parallels of the kind of stress that it puts on people long term, to such a degree that people who work low wage jobs literally have a 10-year lower life expectancy than people who work in like who are wealthy, like upper middle class. Like there is legitimately a measurable health disparity between people who work minimum wage jobs and people who work jobs that pay a lot better with more benefits and who have a much more stable financial existence, you know? And that's just the like financial side of it, the economic side of it, and the access to resources and services and stuff like that. That doesn't even account for the fact that oftentimes minimum wage jobs are more than just 40 hours a week, and frequently with the nature of minimum wage jobs, it will be 40 hours a week of hard labor, which is more than people can really handle, especially beyond a certain age. You know, you get older and your body physically starts to deteriorate, you know? Like, your body is a complex machine, but a machine nonetheless that needs upkeep and maintenance and proper, you know, repair and stuff. Like, some people are like, I can get rich again, no sweat, easy mode, minimum wage is so easy, you're such a baby, they say. Yeah, and that's because those people, number one, don't actually care. Like, the people who say that don't actually believe anything, you know? And in fact, I haven't heard as many people say that lately because of you know, the gap is so wide that like nobody would fucking look at the state of wage labor and be like, you big baby, because they would get descended upon by a bunch of people who work wage jobs. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? My life is hell, and that, like, I'm in a debt trap, you know? And for a lot of those people, if they're not just like disingenuous and malicious, they genuinely like are just dumb as hell, because what they're imagining is that they still have their immense reserves of social connections and wealth, and they're just put in the position of a minimum wage job where they don't have to worry about any of the expenses like a minimum wage earner would have to worry about, you know? Like, it is either malice or a severe lack of self-awareness and perspective that leads people to say stuff like that. Which I guess, you know, connects pretty well to like what led to Leffen giving a take like that. I think in Leffen's case, I don't think it's like actually, I don't think he like hates minimum wage earners or some shit. That would be pretty fucking ridiculous. I think it's just like he didn't know what he was talking about, you know, which plenty of people don't. That's, you know, you are sentenced to death for your crime of not knowing what you're talking about. Like, damn, that's crazy, you know? That's a good bullet, I think. I only noticed he was big once I got too close for it to matter. Is it just me, or am I noticing people are starting to hate people more on the basis of them just being rich, which is cool? That is happening a lot more. The class consciousness in society is growing because there are, like the more that rich people sort of capture the institutions of society, the more visible they become in wreaking havoc on everybody that's not, like, in the wealthy cool kids club. You know what I mean? Like, And the more visible they are in ruining everybody's life, the more everybody's obviously going to hate them for it. And I think that's based. And the more that they try to clamp down on that dissident, dissent, and you know, people who might be political dissidents to authoritarianism and stuff like that, the more it stokes that class consciousness and that antagonism. Because wealthy people are incompetent and too short-sighted to realize that you actually do have to give up some semblance of your position for society to be stable enough for you to, like, still be wealthy. So, basically, yes, I have noticed more people are becoming openly antagonistic towards the rich, and it's fucking based, actually. I don't like how it's blind hate, but it's something. It's not blind hate. You know? Is it visceral? Yes, but it is not blind. It's like how you see something that has, in the average person's mind, well, look, the average person is a moron. But even then, it's not blind hate. Blind hate is when you blame brown people for you losing your job. Like, you're genuinely feeling around in the dark, you can't see the shit that's right in front of you. People hating the rich is them seeing what's right in front of them and being like, I fucking hate that. That makes my life worse. I hate it. That makes everybody else's life worse. I hate it. You know? Hatred of the rich is many things, but blind it is not. I must talk about the average person's mind. True. Democracy basically means government of the people, for the people, by the people. But the people are retarded. It's, you know, he is continually proven correct day after day. You know, he can't stop winning. I forgot about how this track works. This is a shortcut, right? Yeah. Whee. Sick. I might have time to go through, like, a couple more news items. Which means, like, pulling up the links and stuff. But I'd have to wait, I think, till the end of this race to see what they are. Whoa, okay. I'll just go around this time. Oh, that's cool. Can do that. Alright. It's, dang it, I didn't get a box. Three reds again? Wow. Whoa, what? Ah. I tried at the end. I really tried to outline them and stuff, but couldn't do it. You want to talk about the average American? Let's talk about something cool for once. Maybe this is not representative, though. I need disasters happening lately in America. Well, here's a, it's a disaster that's actually directly friendly to us. It's pointed in the correct direction. If I go to NBC News here, I know, gross, mainstream news outlets. Georgia Republican faces town hall backlash over Doge's chainsaw approach to government cuts. Isn't that something? Here, let's Francis. Fort Francis. Representative Rich McCormick, who represents a safe GOP district. So this isn't like Democratic voters, left-leaning voters, or anything like that. This is Republicans. This is the right, you know, conservatives. Came under harsh criticism that focus on the Trump administration's moves to slash federal jobs and budgets. These are Republicans turning against austerity. Representative McCormick faced an angry crowd on Thursday during a town hall in his district in Georgia, where many constituents lashed out at the Republican lawmaker over his support of massive federal layoffs and budget cuts by the Trump administration's Department of Government Efficiency. And additionally, I don't know if they actually mention this. I think they bury the lead on this for a while in the article. They actually specifically revolted over Trump calling himself a king. The White House Twitter account, I believe, a little while ago, put out a tweet that was just like, "It's good to be king," and it was like Donald Trump on a either photoshopped, edited, or like AI generated Time magazine cover with a crown on his head. You know, like, oh, haha, it's good to be king. You know, isn't Trump cool and epic and base for being an authoritarian strongman? Yeah, the socks of the "fell for it again" sticker industry at an all-time high right now. You know, but here were a bunch of Republicans at a town hall saying, "Fuck these budget cuts, fuck these, you know, jobs cuts. Like, all of our people are like getting laid off and stuff. Like, I didn't know the leopards would eat my face." And also, we don't like kings, actually. We don't like that you've declared yourself despot and annulled the role of Congress. There were some people that brought up some, like, relatively specific procedural institutional stuff that Trump had done insofar as, like, making Congress basically irrelevant. Leopards eating my face happens so often. Someone has made a YouTube channel off of it. Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me, especially because for some of these people, it is worth noting. As much as I do want to, like, foment the, like, it's, you know, be the guy at the window that's just saying, like, ha ha ha, yes, in response to this, it is still worth noting that a lot of the Trump voters here are operating off of the same logic still that they were when they decided to vote for Donald Trump. That a lot of them still support the leopards eating people's faces party. They just want the leopards to eat somebody else's face and not theirs. They're not principally, you know, some of them are not principally against people's faces getting eaten by leopards. They're only against their face getting eaten by leopards, right? But nonetheless, the Republican politicians are starting to get put in the hot seat, and that's good. Whatever way you slice it, nobody fucking likes politicians, especially not right now. So the more that politicians are getting, like, put under the magnifying glass, the better. And especially because this could mean that like at some point the class consciousness and like discontent, even from the Republican side, with the oligarchs and stuff like that, might be enough for like a you know, the populist left to start ascending here as well, despite the best efforts mostly of the Democratic Party, actually. You know, regardless, now that I've done my quota of bringing things back to blame liberals, nonetheless, it is good that this is happening. You know? You're like, if you want me to help you Republican voters, just say I was right and I help you. Yeah, maybe a little bit. It's good also to be, like, vindictive about it, too. Just be mean. Like, we literally have data to show that being mean does effectively get people to reconsider their political affiliations and stuff, because like half the reason that people do what they do politically is for group membership purposes and stuff like that, you know? Like if you make it not socially popular or efficacious or like if you make it really fucking uncool and lame and weird to be a reactionary right-winger with dumb fuck opinions, people won't be reactionary right-wingers with dumb fuck opinions. You know? Oh, that was a really well-placed fake item box. I almost hit that. Luckily, I saw it in time to be extremely cool and avoid it with my driving, my subtle angle adjustment and stuff. Oh yeah, I forgot that boost panel was there. It's so annoying that no matter what happens, we're the ones getting blamed for everything. Yeah, that's not great usually. But the great thing is, I can comfortably blame liberals for shit because I'm not a liberal. You know? Ah. Outlined yet again. Alright. Met Far Left. Far Left refused to vote for Kamala Harris. Using auto-correction because it looks funny. Yeah. Oh, yeah, like the left getting blamed for shit. It's funny, the Democrats, I think, blame the left more than Republicans do, because Republicans will at least split the blame between the left and liberals, right? Because they'll conflate the liberals and the left all the time. You know, it only takes one, like, I fucking wish that the liberals were working with us. Are you kidding me? You seen the way that they treat us? You know? Yeah. The left does get blamed for shit frequently because the liberals are the ones doing it, you know? The left, who has never been an institutional power in the United States. Or in most countries, for that matter. I mean, certainly in some parliamentary systems, there have been, like, periods of time where the left has been in power, and wouldn't you know it, those tend to be the periods of time where life gets better. Just saying. You know, like the socialist coalitions in Europe, the social democracies of the 20th century and whatnot. Or any time that the socialist parties win in you know, the modern day. But then, you know, the liberals come along and they're like, here, let me help. And by help, I mean, fuck up the entire welfare state. And then it just ruins everything. This track is cool, too. I really like the basic tracks where you don't need to struggle that hard to figure out where you're going. Big fan of that. Liberals are like, we're better than Republicans. We deported more people. True. That is, like, the best that liberals can do nowadays. See, look, we're better than the Republicans. We deported way more people than them. It's like, fucking, you are not helping. You know? Alright. Give me that. One mushroom. But yes, to return to that article, I don't know, maybe I'll read through some more of it. The one thing I wanted to focus on is just that it is good that, like, now the Republican base is getting mad at their politicians, at their elected officials, for doing exactly the things that they promised that they were going to do, now that they're, like, actually doing them and stuff. Does that make sense? In video of this event, a reporter at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and an NBC News contributor. Oh, okay, taken by Greg Bluestein. They list his cred here. Okay. Bashing both Donald Trump and tech billionaire Elon Musk, who's helping lead Doge's efforts to drastically reduce government spending. In one instance, an attendee referred to recent cuts at the CDC by asking, why is the supposedly conservative party taking such a radical and extremist and sloppy approach to this? Almost 1,300 probationary CDC employees were removed from their posts as the Trump admin makes efforts to terminate all probationary workers, particularly recent hires. Bro, they fired 1,300 people from the CDC as the fucking bird flu is raging, as there's a measles outbreak in Texas. I don't know if you've probably heard about that. Texas is currently experiencing a measles outbreak, and the Republicans in that state, needless to say, are not helping. I mean, they're helping the measles. They're not helping the, you know, the people suffering from the outbreak and that sort of stuff. Oh, wow. That's a big shortcut. And I'm dead. But yeah, you know, leopards eating people's faces moment. People don't like having their face eaten. You know, it's just up to... I guess it's up to us to ruthlessly make fun of people and, like, call them dipshits and fucking moron, like, pieces of shit, losers, and unfuckable weirdos for supporting shit like this, because that makes everybody else's life worse, and, like, you're not special. You know what I mean? The meaner you can be to them, the better. Because that forces people to reconsider the social implications of their behavior. And I don't necessarily even mean social in like a broader socio-political sense. I mean social insofar as, like, imagine if somebody found out that you voted for the guy that, like, ended up firing 1,300 workers from the fucking CDC and, like, gutted the administrative state and just hollowed out America. Like, that needs to be a black mark on anybody's social reputation. Like, I'll be... Bro, you played it for Trump? That's cringe. Yeah, true. Yeah, just call them fucking cringe losers. Or something. Oh, get this. This is Rich. Well, literally, Rich McCormick. If we continue to grow the size of government and we can't afford it, it's going to have shortfalls in your Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. He fucking threatened his constituents. If we continue to grow government and we can't afford it, it's going to have shortfalls in your Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Bro said, like, it's this or we cut Social Security and shit. Like, bro. Bro. The absolute tone deafness here to, like, have the balls to just say that. While he obviously wants to cut it anyway. Rich McCormick is a Republican. He wants to get rid of Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security in any event. Like, spending cuts or not, he wants those gone. right? He's like, you guys better fall in line, otherwise we're gonna cut your benefits. Like, it fucking, you would expect Democrats to behave this way towards their constituency, but not Republicans. You know, Republicans usually fear their constituency a lot more than this. And I expect if I read on, there's gonna be even more, backlash to this guy. Oh. This is a really interesting track. You know, maybe the custom tracks are alright. As long as they don't have so many, like, frivolous shortcuts that make or break the race for you, you know, they can be alright. Maybe, like, don't let politics ruin our friendship. Yeah. Yeah, this time we get to fucking turn that shit around on them. It'd be like, bro, you know, you're literally undercutting your friendships with politics. You're like, yeah, my politics are I want everything to be worse for everyone. Why does nobody want to be friends with me? Like, bro, have you fucking taken a look in the mirror? You know? If you notice the past week, Trump has been more open with threatening people. Yes, I did. I saw the video of him calling out specifically the governor of the state of Maine and threatening them with removing funds. Literally said, like, he stopped short of saying I, but he did say, like, we are the federal law. And said, like, you better comply with us, otherwise you're not going to get any federal funding and stuff. It's like, bro is Louis posting. He's fucking King of France posting. You know? I thought I was going to get mushrooms in 4th place out of 7 players, but I suppose not. Get rid of these. Oh, okay. This ran a month later, it'll be like, if you don't do what I say, I'm gonna pop you. I mean, basically, he's already saying that in a politically permissible sense. This is, I mean, that's like, from an accelerationist perspective, we're eating good. The dialectic is advancing. The government is becoming more antagonistic to political dissent, and thus people are becoming more antagonistic towards the government, especially as the government and private capital are integrating more and more. You know? And I think that, like, genuinely, they're playing their hand too early. I know I said this in the past and, you know, before the election happened, and I still believe that the Republicans are playing their hand too early, and they're overplaying their hand, you know? People are not going to take well to the open authoritarian posting. We've seen that lately. Whoa. This is cool. Looks complicated, though. Holy shit. Some fucking Forbidden Highway shit. What's going on? Yeah, they love, Republicans love prematurely shooting their load or something. I don't know, some joke about coming. No wonder they can't get girls. Yeah, no wonder fucking men, far-right men are unfuckable losers, right? Republicans are the political equivalent of, like, one pump chumps. 0 Riz, 0 stamina, and thus 0 bitches. I rest my case, Your Honor. Fucking put that shit on, like, a Socrates quote or something. Like, put Socrates' head next to that. 0 Riz, 0 stamina, and thus 0 bitches. I was a woman, I'd rather die than date a Republican man. And I think a lot of women out there actually agree with you. You can look at, there are a lot of relationships where there's a conservative woman and a more left-leaning guy. There aren't that many relationships where the guy is more right-leaning and the woman is left-leaning. You know? And if those relationships exist, you would be absolutely, like, floored. Maybe not totally surprised, but, like, I think it is quite a sight to see just how quickly people get de-radicalized from the far right for the sake of pussy. You know? Like, maybe if I'm in a relationship with this woman, I shouldn't be a massive, like, Nazi and unfuckable loser, and maybe I should, you know, I should change my behavior and outlook so that she'll, like, so that she won't fucking hate me. You know what I mean? Republicans did that get their votes mostly from insecure men. Yeah, and the same is true as of most far-right parties around the world. Globally, you can see with any of the nascent right-wing populist parties, their biggest political base is young men, you know? It's like it's the incelification of young men, you know? Spend all that fucking time on 4chan or wherever, or on Twitter. What was the AI doing there? It's probably the AI doesn't have the greatest, like, mesh map for this track. Sometimes in Mario Kart Wii tracks, AI will behave in strange ways, like the computer racers. Because what you need to do when you're making a custom track is you need to do pathfinding for the AI. And it's possible that on some tracks, especially the more complicated ones, the computers can get kind of messed up pathfinding. So occasionally you'll see them, like, drive into a wall. This even happens on some Nintendo tracks. I've seen in Bowser Castle 3, on GBA Bowser Castle 3, there's a part with those yellow ramps. If you body block one of the CPUs from the yellow ramps and you get them to drive into the wall, their pathfinding actually can't recover for some time. You can get them to just continually drive into the wall until they actually, like, black out. They spin out, and Lakitu has to come and save them and drop them back on the track, and then they can resume their normal pathfinding. Hey, I see, like, how the blind earthbender does in the last Avatar. I mean, they don't see at all, right? The pathfinding is like a hard programmed thing. It's like, oh, this track has been selected, therefore you're using this pathfinding with whatever standard deviation given what point you are on the track, right? It's basically just drawing a line for that CPU to follow, regardless of what buttons it pushes, based on, like, what position it is. You know? It's not seeing anything. It's just possible for you to mess up the recognition of where it is on that line, you know? And then it has to kind of reset, and be like, to prevent, like, you know, further errors from occurring. It'll reset the position of the CPU, and then continue like that. At least that's the basic, like, logic of how CPUs in Mario Kart work, you know? And they break the rules of the game, too. You'll notice the CPUs will maintain speed sometimes, making turns that it's actually impossible to make if you just hold a direction on the control stick. You know, ordinarily, in circumstances where the player would have to drift, the CPU is capable of just banking a turn instantly because that's the line that it's hard programmed to follow. You know? And likewise, it's also possible for the CPU to drift in a straight line going forward. When they drift, they don't necessarily turn. It's all, like, just a part of which flags are being hit and which signals are being set and stuff like that, based on which point on the line that it is. You know? Anyways, this was a little bit shorter than the usual 2 hours, and I only covered a couple of things. But regardless, I think I did. I think I did all right for coming back to stream. We'll see. Again, special thanks, special mentions to Leffen for unintentionally giving us one of the funniest memes in all of live streaming. But from this point onwards, I'm gonna raid somebody, and then, God, I guess I do have to. Well, have to. I wanted to make a segment out of one of those news events that I covered, for the reasons I described with like the decay of journalism and shit. So may as well get on that at some point. So who's live right now? Azan is live. Well, I value some nice good news coverage. So whatever your opinion on Azan, that's where I'm gonna send you guys. There we go. Enjoy the Hatsanabe broadcast. Now. Alright, cool. See you guys next time.